Cleopatra, a star immortal, beauty beyond poetic portrayal, and princess of Pharaoh's dynasty, is one of the most spoken, researched, and discussed stars in history. Cleopatra was a descendant of Ptolemy, the general and friend of Alexander, who was anointed as the king after conquering Egypt in 332 BC. Ptolemy XII was Cleopatra's father. Beauty breeds problems, and the changing circumstances of her life had created the worst problems for her. She endured trials and tribulations in her effort to be a reigning queen, live a goddess image, and survive the power games all her life. Cleopatra, at the age of 14, had to marry her 10-year-old brother to crown herself as the Queen of Egypt after the death of her father Ptolemy XII in 51 BC. Her reign was said to be the best in the history of Egypt. There was never a protest or unrest in any context, and the general public regarded her as the best of all the rulers. Her brother was jealous of Cleopatra's growing popularity, and he plotted to eliminate her to become the sole monarch of the country. Cleopatra escaped from Egypt and decided to seek the help of the Roman dictator Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar was a mighty dictator, and reaching him out was not easy. She had to smuggle herself into Caesar's palace. Caesar fell for her beauty, and it was both passion and compulsion for her to accept him. Cleopatra was 21 and Caesar was 52 years old then. But they were united in marriage. Julius Caesar attacked Egypt and emerged victorious. Cleopatra's brother, who tried to escape, drowned in the Nile River. Cleopatra became the queen yet again. Caesar stayed back with Cleopatra in Egypt, and he was quite impressed with the art, culture, and many other things in Egypt. Julius Caesar returned to Rome with Cleopatra and began implementing many good things he had seen in Egypt. He changed the Gregorian calendar to the Caesar calendar and brought reforms in the administration of libraries and carrying out census process. Caesar and Cleopatra had a boy baby, who was christened as Caesarion, and he was also known as Little Caesar. The Senate in Rome, which was focused on upholding democratic foundations, revolted against the growing totalitarian attitude of Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar was assassinated by a gang led by Senators Cassius Longinus and Marcus Brutus, 1 month after Caesar declared himself as dictator for life of the Roman Republic. Cleopatra, who felt that it was no longer safe to continue in Rome, returned to Egypt with her son Caesarion. Cleopatra's other brother died mysteriously, and Cleopatra became the undisputed ruler of Egypt with her son. She took care of the citizens of her country very well and projected herself as the goddess on the earth. She also came to be known for her extravagant lifestyle. Rome was witnessing a new situation around this time. The staunch loyalists of Julius Caesar, Mark Antony, Octavian, and Lepidus revolted against the Roman rulers, and the civil war was about to break any time. They had approached Cleopatra and sought her support to fight against opponents, and she readily agreed to extend all her support. The forces led by Mark Antony killed the assassins of Caesar in the civil war at Philippi. The Roman Republic came under the control of the triumvirate. Lepidus died soon, and Mark Antony and Octavian continued to rule the Roman Republic. They wanted to celebrate their victory, and a grand event was organized at Philippi, and Cleopatra was invited to grace the occasion. The Cleopatra reached there in style in a luxury ship, and her beauty was the center of attraction. Mark Antony fell for her astounding beauty and expressed his love to her. Cleopatra agrees, and that was the beginning of a legendary romantic history. Their love became intense, and Mark Antony moved to Egypt along with Cleopatra, leaving behind his wife and children in Rome. Time moved on, and Mark Antony continued his stay in Egypt. They exiled all those who revolted against Cleopatra, and she also gave birth to 2 children. Octavian took advantage of Mark Antony's absence and began consolidating his position in Rome. Mark Antony wanted to invade the Parthian Empire, and he needed the help of Cleopatra in terms of arms and ships for this major expedition. He had committed her vast wealth in reciprocation of her support. Octavian, who was waiting for such an opportunity to turn the Roman public against Mark Antony, began propagating that Mark Antony had committed enormous wealth to Cleopatra. who was not connected to Rome by blood. He also roped Mark Antony's wife, who happened to be his sister, to create a sympathy wave and to instigate more anger and fury against Mark Antony. The adverse developments in Rome depressed Mark Antony and he returned to Egypt, abandoning the Parthian war halfway. Octavian, who emerged stronger and authoritative in Rome, convinced the Senate to declare war against Egypt. Some of the senators, who were still loyal to Mark Antony, switched sides and began supporting Mark Antony. The declaration of war against Egypt angered Mark Antony and he announced his support for Cleopatra. The Roman Senate stripped all the positions held by Mark Antony and labeled him as an outlaw and a traitor. Octavian mobilized a force of over 200,000 soldiers and Antony too arranged for a force of the same size and mixed heavy Roman and light Egyptian infantry. Antony maneuvered his army into Greece but Octavian trailed him. Roman forces defeated Antony's forces. Mark Antony, who couldn't digest the defeat, followed the honorable Roman tradition of suicide by sword. It was said that the attempt was not fully successful. Mark Antony, with a wide, open wound in the stomach, was taken to Cleopatra, who was there in a mausoleum. Mark Antony was said to have died on the lap of his lover, Cleopatra. Cleopatra requested Octavian to spare her son Caesarion, who was born to Julius Caesar, but he declined and executed her son mercilessly. Cleopatra came to know Octavian's plan to take her through the streets of Rome handcuffed as a mark of victory in the war. The mighty lady decided to end her life. She was said to have died by self-inducing a most venomous snake to bite her breast or by applying a poisonous ointment to herself. Octavian, who admired Cleopatra's bravery, gave the lovers Mark Antony and Cleopatra a military funeral in Rome, and it was a very grand event. The beauty and bravery of Cleopatra still haunt and melt the hearts of masses worldwide even after 2,000 years, and it will remain so for all the time to come.